Hey, look out. It's Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
It's Robin O'Brien and Honey with us today.
Yeah.
And, before we went live, I don't think Mark participated at all in this whole mouth trumpet tuba.
We had a whole orchestra going on. With our mouths. It was
I don't think I have a whole lot of mouth trumpet talent. I'm more of a whistler kind of guy.
Okay. So you're kind of the flute section of the orchestra. Okay.
Exactly. I'm the flute section. And my sister-in-law.
Something about no more tears. We got
right.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, my sister-in-law, we're having a conversation at a Bones, which is a really big steak place here in Atlanta.
Yes.
And, you know, of course, my sister-in-law is like, you know, I hate it when people whistle or mouth trumpet. So, you know, from that point on, you know, me and Robin are always like, every time she's around, Robin's like, I'm like,
I'm endearing myself.
Yes,
We're endearing ourselves.
Yeah, sounds like it.
We want to talk to these guys about, they co-host a show called the Mark and Robin Show. Probably
it's a great name for it.
Yeah, probably have a music open like none other. It's Kokomo from the Beach Boys is kind of an open for them.
You're never going to live that down, Robin.
Yeah, that's one of Robin's favorite songs. It sounds to me, Mark, did you notice that Robin's kind of a little agitator, isn't she? Did you say your sister doesn't like whistles and then she says, hey, let's whistle every time we're around?
Oh, you know, I think we're both, you know, our personalities are kind of like, if someone tells you can do something, it's the only thing we want to do then.
You have to,
you know,
yes.
It's like, please, whatever, please wear a mask. You know, I don't have to wear a mask, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
When people were saying, oh, masks are not necessary, don't worry about masks. We're like, well, I'm wearing a mask because I'm responsible.
Right. No, we're rebels. Mark's a rebel. I'm more of like a rule follower. So I'm like, oh, you're right. I really should be careful. Then I'm like, nah, come on. Let's be ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the problem with people, I think. And that's something we actually have talked about in the show is that people kind of put on a mask because they want to impress people. And so they don't really show what they really think or how they really feel. And then you're just really setting yourself up for disaster because you never really sold the package of who you really are as a person.
Mm.
And
I found out last night that's called catfishing and with the kids these days. Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'd never heard of that before, but apparently it's a thing. Catfishing.
Catfishing. Okay.
Putting out there that you're somebody that you're actually not. So.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Mark,
Or
did you
better
know
known as
that?
Instagram.
You look like you knew that, Mark.
Oh, well, I've seen that Chris Hansen show, To Catch a Predator, before, where you know they go online and they pretend to be a kid, and these guys show up, you know, and it's like, dude, you're busted. And I think in dating, sometimes we put on a mask of our best self, or something we talked about in our latest series of podcasts on the Mark and Robin show called Real Talk.
Oh, yes.
You know, one of the guys talks about the woman that he was dating. She was just mirroring him the whole time they were dating. You know, tell me what you like, and then I can pretend to like that. Tell me what kind of clothes you like, and then I'll wear those clothes. It's kind of the chameleon in a relationship. And you know, I'm not a marriage expert, right, on how to stay married. But I can really tell you how to not stay married. I'm an expert on that. And one of those things is to ignore red flags. You know, I know we met in the heroin rehab program, but we got engaged in there, and we're going to get married as soon as we get out. Yeah, that's probably not a good life plan.
Yeah.
Hey, I didn't realize I told my wife and I's story to you, Mark. I appreciate
But here you are 30 some odd years later, and you're still married.
It worked out for you kids, Rick.
Yeah.
So, you know, in some cases.
Mark and Robin have they're an item, by the way, if you didn't know that, but they also have a show.
Yes.
Called,
it's official because Robin calls Mark Honey. So
Yeah.
Mark and Robin show. Yeah, if you didn't call him Honey, we would just treat you as, friends, good friends. But it's
we are actually. That's what makes a better relationship is we're actually like best friends. So
there you go.
Absolutely.
Come on.
And you don't call him schmoopy or something sappy like that. So
no.
good. Yeah.
But I do call him lots of like honey and baby and Sure.
Yeah, I gotcha.
A pet name. Now that's okay, right, Mark? That's okay to call each other a pet name or two.
Yeah. People call you all kinds of things. So, being called Snoopy or whatever is totally fine.
Now, Mark, what do you call Robin? Do you call her Getty or something like that, or
I call her Darlin sometimes.
Darlin?
But usually it's just, hey, Robin. Robin likes to hear
Robin
me
likes
say
to
her
be
name.
Robin.
I
Okay.
do, because I'm always mom.
Mom.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. The four kids are
True.
like, mom,
Mom.
yeah.
Mom.
Hey, mom,
Yes.
I'm hungry, mom.
Mhm.
So hearing someone say, hey, Robin is a
Refreshing.
welcome change.
Yep.
It is.
It's funny you say that because last weekend there was a men's retreat type thing where we all went camping for a couple of days, and some folks took their teens or their kids or whatever, and we were all just kind of in different groups and talking and just hanging, having a good time. And then somebody said, "Hey, Dad," and all of us looked. Dad. Oh, that's not mine. Okay.
Yes.
All right. But that's
funny because you said dad and you all looked like, as a mom, like we know our call. So only one of us would have looked because we're more in tune with our kids. But dads are like,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because you bring up a thought here. So you have, and which I got to say, the picture that I think's on your Facebook of your kids, that's an amazing picture. I love that picture of all of them.
Oh,
there.
thank you.
Are there times when you hear the cry and it's the cry you don't want to respond to, so you don't?
All the time. I am able to differentiate of like, that's just, I want attention and someone to look at me. And that's like, go start the car because we're going to the hospital. Like I can tell the difference.
Yeah.
Okay. There's definitely a difference.
Is that an innate thing, or do you think you learned that?
You learn it actually. You learn it when they're babies. Because when they're really young, you're like, oh, that's a hungry cry. Oh, that's my diaper needs to be changed cry. And oh, that's, I just want to keep throwing my stuffed animal over the side of the crib for the next 6 hours and play this game with you. Cry. Yeah.
That was oddly
protector,
specific, Robin.
Pardon?
Yeah, Robin's a protector. I saw the show yesterday with Robin's sister, Jenny.
Yeah.
She was talking about Robin taking up for her, with Fatima and wherever.
Yeah, with Fatima. Do tell, Robin.
Okay, you know what? I'd like to clarify something of that story. Jennifer, remembers bits and pieces, but I stuck up specifically for my sister. Like she had started something with my sister. So when Jennifer came around the corner and then stood next to her, I was like, what? Like, this was for you, man. And I was like, you are, she had to save face. That's pretty true. And Jennifer also wanted to say she stuck up for me in high school. I like to also clarify that statement that Jennifer was the one who walked into the first day we arrived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, walked into the Quick Trip and told the girl, hey, you looks like you get your clothes at Kmart.
Oh.
And then I'm the one who went to school the next week and realized that my sister just picked a fight with the big bully of the entire school who had a black eye and a missing tooth.
Oh.
And Jenny didn't even go to that school. So when she swiveled around and saw that I was there, I became, they just targeted me. And so that was the rest of my life. And thanks for bringing that up, Rick and Dan.
Jen. Boy, she didn't tell us the whole story.
Yeah.
She
sounds all innocent. Like, no.
It sounds like a perfect time to push a counseling session on them, Dan. So if you guys need counseling,
the O'Brien Sisters podcast. Every session is a counseling session.
Well, tell us what's coming up on the podcast. Did the latest one drop already, or is it coming tomorrow? What?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we just finished a series called Real Talk, and it's 3 shows basically where I sit down with 2 other gentlemen. We don't use their real names. We call them Tyler Durden and Bruce Lee. But basically, we call it Real Talk because we wanted to. We're all 3 of us are Christian guys. We've been in the church, but sometimes in the church we don't hear a lot of real talk. We don't hear people talk about things that they're really going through, issues that they're struggling with. It's like, whoa, church is where we all, talk about how close we are to God and how, everything's fine. But the 3 shows we're doing, it's 3 of us who have gone through infidelity in our marriages, and we just talk openly about, basically 3 things. How did you find out? What did you do about it? And then, how has this changed your view of marriage? And where do we go from here? So it is real talk. It's guys sort of being honest about where we're at. And in my case, I don't have any children of my own. I joke around and I say, yeah, in my marriage, the end was really rough. There were children involved, her, and I didn't want custody. But that's in my case, there were no children, but the other 2 gentlemen, they do have children. So they have to have that ongoing relationship with their former spouse. And where I'm like, hey, it's over. I can move on with my life. These guys, they have to, they have ongoing issues. One is kind of married to a narcissist. The other, was married to a narcissist. The other was married to someone with borderline personality disorder, it seems like. And so having to continue, one question that is asked is, we talk a lot about forgiveness on our show, and we talked about forgiveness in the Real Talk series, and they ask a good question, or maybe it's more of a statement. It's hard to forgive when that person is continually hurting you, right? So
what is that's, I mean, you bring up so many things I really like kind of to meddle in just a little bit. Let's go with that, and then I'll circle around with something else I wanted to ask you. So what's the response? Is there an answer? Is there a solid answer to that? Because I mean, all of us probably have run into folks that's the situation or the circumstance that they're in, the scenario that they're in. So what did you say? What's the answer?
It's true. Your boss at work can be that person who, as Christians, we say, you have to forgive when someone hurts you, when someone treats you badly. But your boss is treating you badly every day. Still, how do you deal with that? How do you forgive? For me, going through group therapy kind of situations in churches, like I went through the Oasis program with North Point Church, and I went through divorce recovery through Free Chapel Church. And, there's a lot of talk about forgiveness, and they're like, well, you have to forgive. And I remember when my marriage was newly over and I was still dealing with a lot of the pain and hurt, they would say, oh, you have to forgive. And I would kind of grit my teeth and say, I forgive her. Right? Or I forgave her. But, one of the brothers kind of put his arm around me and said, forgiveness, sometimes it's a process. It's a daily thing that you have to just give it to God, and you have to lay it at his feet and say, I'm having a hard time with this, but I know I have to forgive, if not for the other person, for myself, because that anger and that bitterness, it's caustic, it's poison. And so forgiveness frees us from that connection, really. Andy Stanley says that forgiveness really says you don't owe me anymore. And so that's easy to do when the relationship is over, you've moved on with your life. But when you have kids with a person, and in some cases, we see situations where the former spouse is using the children against you, telling your kids that you're a bad person, that all of this is your fault, and et cetera. And that goes both ways. Sometimes men do that, sometimes women do that. And so, yeah, it's a tough thing that folks have to deal with on an ongoing basis. But forgiveness is necessary. It's necessary just in marriage, period. Because when you see sometimes with someone who overacts, where you say, hey, to your spouse, hey, how you doing this morning? Well, how do you think I'm doing? There's something that's not dealt with. There's something that happened that hasn't been forgiven yet. So if you find yourself in a relationship where someone else is overreacting to every little thing all the time, hey, there may be some unforgiveness in there somewhere.
We're talking
What are you doing there, Robin? Are you digging?
I'm digging. That means you need to start doing some digging. You got to go back. You got to find it. Where did it start? It started somewhere, and you got to find that.
Yeah.
It's like sin.
Mark and Robin, they've got the Mark and Robin show. You can hear it at wherever you get your podcast, probably, right?
That's right. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple. We're
Check
everywhere. Just do Mark and Robin. You Google us. We're now on top. Thank God. We were beating out these other guys. They were like tennis players. No, I'm just kidding. But,
I love that you're talking about real stuff. And you just mentioned something when we started about relationships, how I think somebody's relationship where the guy that was wearing the clothes the girl would talk about that she really liked, and that kind of, what did you call that? You called that something, and I can't remember.
Yeah, I call that mirroring, where you're dating somebody and they're learning everything about you so that they can become what you want them to be. But that's a real problem, that chameleon person that's not the real person. And so what you end up doing is you end up marrying somebody, and then when the wedding ceremony is over, typically on the honeymoon, the person is like, let me take my mask off. And you're like, what have I done? What's happening here?
What's the balance in a relationship? Somebody that's dating, whether they've been married before or not, the balance. I mean, you don't want to say, hey, I always leave my underwear out. I don't know how to put it away. And the dirty ones, they just hang from the shower. I just want to tell you that right up front before we get into date number 2. I mean, you don't want to, I mean, what, I mean, I know that's kind of
just a common fight with you and your wife, Rick.
You gave up a long time ago. Let me tell you.
Take your underwear down, Rick.
Yeah.
Amazon, and I know that's underwear.
I know that's a little ridiculous, but there's got to be a balance, right? Because you don't want to just, okay, this is me, blah, and then, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that in the man, there's fear there. I mean, you don't want to, oh yeah, I don't want you to know too much. I want you to know a little bit. What's the balance you guys have found?
I think it's having a scale. How important is it? Is this really important? Is this a deal breaker for me? And am I, and as you get to know each other, am I flexible on changing that? And sometimes it's just, asking more questions. Why do you do this? And getting to the bone of it. And and also I think you got to be respectful of talking about it, because sometimes it can be a trigger. Like you're like, oh, my ex did that, and every time he did that, it was because he'd been drinking. You kind of got to dig a little bit. I think talking about those things is really important. Like the first year that Mark and I were dating, we talked like constantly about relationships and who we were as people, because we really wanted to be very open about it, because we didn't want to be like, hi, don't I look cute today? That's really not going to work when you come home and there's like, kids scrapping at your feet, that it's not the same. So you always want to be honest about things.
Yeah, that 100% honesty. If you're in a relationship with somebody and you can't talk to them, that's a problem. You can't be honest with them. You can't be yourself. That's a huge problem, because, the opposite of maybe the woman being the chameleon, and sometimes men are chameleons, that mirrorer. But the opposite of that is sometimes guys they're nice guys, right? And, being a nice guy is that I'm a reformed nice guy, right? And a nice guy is sort of like George McFly in Back to the Future movies. Well, okay, Biff, honey, where do you want to eat tonight? Oh, that's totally fine, honey. I don't have any opinions, and I'll do whatever you want me to do, because I just want you to be happy, and I don't have any opinions or feelings about anything. That is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Because you're not being yourself in the relationship. You're just trying to make the other person happy. And, that whole thing, happy wife, happy life, is not true. It's not true at all. It's happy spouse, happy house, right? You both have to be able to be yourself in the relationship. And, Robin and I, is there any topic that is off the table?
We talk about it.
There's 0 topics that aren't on the table, and that's authenticity, right? Because the opposite of a nice guy is an authentic guy, a real guy or a real woman. Because sometimes, women can be. It's that whole codependent thing where I can't be happy unless you're happy. So and
let's be honest, the church sometimes pushes that. Like I've had that happen when I started dating. It was like, oh, Robin, you can't talk about that. You got to be nice. And, you can't be bringing that out in the open this early on. And I was like, no, we're getting it all out. And but I think the church, it's out of love. Let's rephrase that. People are being loving, thinking, come on, girl. I mean, of course, if you're going to be wearing flip-flops on dates and like scratching your belly, like, okay, maybe you might need to have a little talk about amping it up a little bit. But when it comes
Thanks for talking to me about that. I appreciated you bringing that up. When on our first date,
your date at the Walmart, apparently.
Cool,
I'm sure that was attractive on some level.
Yeah, sure. He's a man.
Robin O'Brien and Mark Stansel, they do a show called the Mark and Robin Show. You got to check it out. It's getting late. I guess we need to take a break.
Oh, we were. And we
love
wanted to pop one thing in there. Mark, can you tell them a little about something you got coming up?
Oh, yeah. I own a comics and animation company called Terminus Media. And this week we're dropping a new comic called Samson Rise.
Yes.
And it's about Samson, and it's great. And
look how strong Robin is. Look at that.
I'm not Samson.
Yeah, so it's the story.
Nor am I Delilah. Thank you.
That's right. And it follows a series that we've been working on called Dominion: Fall of the House of Saul. So these are some comic books that we're working on, and just want to encourage folks to go to terminusmedia.com and check those out.
Very cool.
And I got to say, I saw the picture of Samson, and I was a little scared. That's it's well done. The artwork is just very, very well done. So that'd be something what's the website again so folks can check it out?
Yeah, the website is Terminus Media, TERMINUS media.com.
All right. Hey, let's talk with you guys in the summer and see what's going on. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.